Are we ready to go here? Yes. Okay, so we're going to call to order the special joint meeting of the City of West Sacramento Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission and the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission for October 16th. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to call on Commissioner Hargrove to do that since he just walked in.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hargrove. Big group today. I think we're going to do a roll call and also some introductions so we all kind of get to know each other a little bit better. So go ahead with the roll call and then we'll just kind of go down the line and really quickly introduce yourself.
Chair Price.
I am here.
Chair Mungia Esquivel.
Here.
Commissioner Hargrove.
Present.
Commissioner Sandoval. Commissioner Ahmad.
Here.
Commissioner Clayton. Commissioner Early. Alternate Commissioner Horowitz.
Here.
Chair Seals. Chair McMichael.
Here.
Commissioner Clower.
Here.
Commissioner Lozano.
Here.
Commissioner Hayashi. Commissioner Volkar.
Here.
Commissioner Jordan.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Branneman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Why don't we start down on the end over here and just say who you are, what you do, et cetera, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Steve Lozano. I am a commissioner on the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission and a lifetime member of West Sacramento. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anthony Volkar. I'm a two-term member on the Arts Commission, and I am not a lifetime member of West Sacramento. I've lived in Sacramento, I believe, for 14 years now.
Hi, I'm Christy Jordan, a member of the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission, also proud West Sacramentan, and I'm throwing a Veterans Day parade.
Hi, I'm Gail Clower. I was on the first commission, the first year of the commission for the Arts, Culture, and Historical Preservation Commission. Very proud to still be here.
Hi, Julia McMichael, longtime art supporter with the Old Jazz Jubilee for many years when we had it here, and very involved in the arts and historic preservation in our great city.
Thank you. I'm Greg Price from the Parks Commission since 2009. Lived here since like 94, something like that. Yeah.
Hi, Elizabeth Esquivel, Vice Chair of the Parks and Recreation Intergenerational Services Commission. Very proud West Sacramento resident.
Hi, Sasha Horowitz, alternate commissioner on the Parks Commission, and not a lifetime West Sacramento resident, but my 2-year-old is.
Ian Branneman, Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission, and a lifetime West Sacramento resident.
I'm Matthew Hargrove. I've grew up in West Sacramento. I've lived in 5 different neighborhoods and 15 different houses. I've served on a commission in one form or another since the late 1990s, and I'm proud to serve my city in this format. And I'm going to date Christy Jordan, who used to be my babysitter.
Was he a brat?
Well, thank you, everyone. Oh, sorry, down there.
Aruj. Oh, hi. My name is Aruj Ahmed. I'm a Parks Commissioner. I have lived in Sacramento for 8 years and Yolo County for 14.
All right, now I'll say thank you. Sorry down there. We are going to, is there anyone wishing to speak to the commission? They should fill out a request to speak card. Is there anyone here? Nope, okay. We will go on to General Administration Function Part 1, Item 1A, presentations on the public, by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the commission. The commission is prohibited by law from discussing issues not on the agenda brought to them at this time. We have no cards and no members of the public, all right? All right, item 1B, commission communications. I think we don't have anything from there either. Moving right along, regular agenda, item 2, presentation and discussion of the Sycamore Trail Phase 2 and 3 pedestrian overcrossing aesthetic treatments. Edgar.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Edgar Medina. I am one of the senior civil engineers with the Public Works Department for the City of West Sacramento. We really appreciate this joint meeting. I know it's not on your schedule, but we have a very exciting project, and we're trying to keep it on a schedule. And we requested, and Parks Department and Cindy was very helpful, and Anna, to get this meeting together. So we really appreciate your time and hopefully your discussion and comments on what we're going to present tonight. So with me tonight is we have a good portion of the project team. To my right, we have Dennis Haglin and Brian Hansen, who are both with Drake Haglin Associates, who are design consultant. To my left is Dan Miller, who is with Calendar Associates, who is handling the landscape and aesthetic architecture of the pedestrian overcrossing. And to my rear is the senior or the supervising civil engineer for the Public Works Department, and ultimately my boss. So we have a good team here that we discussed the project. If we can't answer the question, I would be surprised that between the five of us, we wouldn't be able to answer your questions. So what we have tonight is the Sycamore Trail Phase 2, Phase 3 trail extension project. Now, primarily today's discussion is going to be on the pedestrian overcrossing aesthetic treatments related to the 5 alternatives that we have on the PowerPoint, and then on the boards that we had on display here for everyone to look at before sitting down. A little bit of background on the project in of itself. It was initiated in 2016, 2017, where the city went and secured a grant through SACOG through congestion mitigation air quality for the design of the bridge. And then subsequently, we were able to get $5.2 million for the construction of the project. So the project is funded through both local and state and federal funding. The project extends from the intersection of Evergreen and Sycamore, which is the north end, what we're calling the North Trail segment, all the way down to the south end, which is Park and Stone. You'll see in the upcoming slides that there's an overcrossing which lands at the Westmore Oaks Elementary school site. Just a little bit of a background related to the trail as it fits within the Trails Parks master plan. So in 2013, the city adopted and approved a Trails master plan, and then subsequently this July reapproved it in 2018. And Sycamore Trail Phase 2, 3, 4 are all part of the master plan to provide one of the nation's best pedestrian and bicycle-friendly community. So this trail is identified in the master plan as a critical north-south connection extending from the UPR down all the way down eventually to the south end of the Barge Canal Trail. So a couple of things as we start talking into or going into the actual slides of the aesthetics. There's in general 3 segments. As I mentioned, there's the North Trail segment, which is identified in red, which is at the intersection of Evergreen and Sycamore, the pedestrian overcrossing, which is over Highway 50, and then the Southern Trail segment, which is in a corridor behind the commercial, industrial businesses and the residential units. There is a center portion trail segment, which is actually goes down Clarendon. So the trail actually lands on the north side of the parking lot of the Westmark Elementary. Then the connection goes to Clarendon before it actually connects into the Southern Trail, as it's shown in the blue segment. So there is a middle link there, but it's through the public streets. Before we go on to the actual slides regarding the aesthetics, one of the things that we were asking from the commissioners is to narrow down a recommendation. So one of the things that you should have on the dais is kind of the POC recommendation. So the POC is the pedestrian overcrossing acronym. So what we're asking for the commissioners is to actually, in a two-step process, go down from 5 alternatives down to 2, and then hopefully, as a group, we could come down to a 1, that we could then report back to council as a recommendation from the commissions. So this is the same process that we're going to continue with the TMI Commission on November 5th, and then subsequent, immediately after, go to council with the final recommendations from all 3 commissions, and then ultimately get the final recommendation from council as to how we're going to move forward with the aesthetics. With that, I will pass it on to Dan Miller, who is going to go over the aesthetics portion of it.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, commissioners. Again, my name is Dan Miller. I'm with Calendar Associates. We're a landscape architecture firm. Get to work with the city and with Drake Haglin on this project for the landscape portion of the trail, and then the aesthetic treatment of the trail and the overcrossing. There's a great project opportunity in that it's going to be an integral piece of this greater connecting system that you have in process. It's already started the Sycamore Trail with the Phase 1 project, which I believe is under construction or soon under construction. Integrated with that is another opportunity for a gateway element for the city itself. So those two things combined, our hope is that they'll kind of speak to each other. When working on trails like this project, which we have in the past, continuity of the experience along the trail, particularly for the user of the trail, knowing where to get on, where to find the trail, and knowing that you're on the trail and that there's a consistency of the feel of that is something that's really important in establishing. And that's something that we're looking at and considering as we're looking at aesthetics and the treatments along here. The presentation that we put together does break down the project into these different portions. That we think of them as nodes, the connecting points, and then the trail, the greater trail in between. And that's what I'm going to walk through in this presentation. But again, the bigger aesthetic vision is a consistency. We're connecting off of the adjacent Joey Lopes Park at the north, and there's some opportunities to speak to the language, the design language that's set up there, and along the Phase 1 trail, and then create a consistency along this section of the trail segment itself. So that's from the trail standpoint what we're looking at. Some of the elements that we're looking at continuing are there's some unique bench design implemented at Joey Lopes Park and in the trail portion, and using that as an element that's kind of unique to this trail and continuing that along. Using interpretive signage, finding opportunities for public art to be included along the trail potential locations. Park features such as picnic table and bench areas, using equipment that's maintainable by parks, but useful for the users of the trail in locations that are useful. Paving enhancements, treatments that are can have an impact but are lower cost, things that we can do with the pavement treatments along the way to, again, create this consistency and unity along the trail system are some things that we're going to talk about. Other trail amenities along the greater portion of the trail is lighting, a consistent lighting both for safety purposes, but also in the aesthetics, the lights that are being used, that there's a consistency there. The trail itself is a multi-use trail, so it'll be bikes and pedestrians, and we're going to get into a little more detail a little in the slideshow of how there's some opportunities for separation between the two, and some places where they'll come together and how we deal with that. Formal planting being irrigated, nice formal planting areas where we can concentrate those at entry points, connection points, these nodes that I'm talking about. We're looking at pulling pallet from Joey Lopes Park and plant materials that have worked in the area that are maintainable by the Parks or Maintenance Department. Looking at what's working there, and also from an aesthetic look, plant material that creates that consistency along the way. So the first place that we would be applying these is at the north trail segment. So it's tilted sideways. North is to the right on here. Joey Lopes Park is across Evergreen. So in this area, we're creating our first entry point and are marking it with some of those more formal plantings where we have shrubs and ground covers, where there's opportunity, some tree placement. There is some potential opportunity for wayfinding or interpretive signage along the way before we make the bend across. To get up to the height of the overcrossing, there is a pedestrian ramp on both sides that approaches as they go up. So on the far left of this segment where the white portion of the trail starts, that's where the elevation starts increasing. So this first part is where the kind of the concentration of potentially accent planting and formal planting would occur. We're jumping down now just because it's a similar type of treatment down to the southern trail segment. So as Edgar mentioned, when we land at the school site, the trail then connects onto Clarendon, which is a side street, and then before you wrap around Clarendon before you come onto the actual formal trail again. So what you're seeing here is kind of another entry point onto the trail at Deerwood Street, which is the north end of the southern trail segment. And I can go back to the bigger picture. I did want to say, I'm sorry I didn't start out this way. If anybody has any questions along the way, please feel free to interrupt me and I can catch them then. Or if you want to gather your questions for the end, I'm comfortable either way. And also, even though we're the designer that worked on this, that we are not bought in, or we're open to any comments that you have. You will not offend or hurt our feelings. We want to give you a trail and a crossing that the city is proud of and happy with. So continuing on this trail connection, there is a small area for some formal planting. You see on here we have this kind of wave blue treatment. That's a suggestion of the pavement treatment where we could do integral color or engraving in the pavement, something to tie in with a bigger theme for the trail that we think there's potential in the overcrossing being the catalyst or the kind of centerpiece of this, and we can pull from there and pick elements to start applying to these entry points. So you'll see that there are some themes that we're suggesting in these overcrossing. And we can emphasize those along the trail in these special pavement treatment areas at these entry points. This is also an area where there might be a little informal seating area with those gabion benches. Continuing on the southern trail segment, this is kind of cross sections through typical trail segments. So there's, depending on the width, and the width varies of the corridor that we're going through, there's opportunities either to have a separated trail, which is on the north, where the multi-use trail is predominantly for the bike, and then there's a decomposed walking path that could be separated from it with some planting area. Where the corridor gets narrower, those would be, there would still be a full width multi-use trail, but the DG trail would be adjacent to it, attached to it. And along those areas, there would be opportunities for some bench seating at periods along the way, and a couple opportunities for a picnic table to stop along the trail and rest. So I think one of the big pieces that we wanted to talk about is the pedestrian overcrossing. So stepping back up to the highway. And again, the aesthetic vision here, or the driver here, was this really has an opportunity to be a focal point along the trail. So there's the trail rider experience. It's also a gateway opportunity for the city itself as you're coming along the highway. Excuse me. And so trying to find the balance where we're addressing those two experiences. We're looking at opportunities to speak to something that would be unique to West Sacramento, and kind of looking to reflecting on West Sacramento's geographical, industrial, and historical context in its development as a modern progressive city. So finding kind of a combination of reflecting on the either geographical, in one case, the port, or the Native American history of West Sacramento, and then adding a little bit of a modern contemporary flair to it to kind of speak to the progressiveness of the city. Just to help comment on them, we gave them some names, and so the river, the port, the basket, and the weave, and I'll speak a little bit more to those. So the first option that we were looking at was kind of going to the river, relationship of the river to the city. Historically, one of the foundations of settlement along this area. And using forms, the wave form, both in the column architecture, but also in the guardrail, the form of the guardrail, the colors to emphasize the river, water, nautical theme. You saw through some of the other pavement treatments, we had that blue swash going through, and the idea is that is something that we could pull from, should that be a direction the city looks to go, to kind of enhance this look and the experience, both from the vehicles coming and from the pedestrian going across. We have this wind veil concept, which it's up in the upper right-hand corner, is an example where they're loose aluminum sheets, small sheets that when the wind catches it, they cause this wind kinetic type of art treatment so that's what that gray area under the wave and the elevation represents. Yes, sorry.
Is the image in the lower right-hand corner just a zoom-in of the wind veil?
Correct. Okay. Correct, yeah, it's just an example of how it might be constructed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Were there any other questions on the first option? Yes. Yeah.
So I just have the same question on all these. If I can't see some of them well enough. I know one of the questions will be concern for safety. Mm-hmm. Are these all solid and glass, or are there differences between them? I know some of the comments we got in the past was worry, again, something happening from the overpass, but also kids just hucking stuff off of it as they're walking.
Right, so all these schemes have the Caltrans required fence guardrail system, so it's 9
foot tall, 1x1 mesh.
Yeah, 9 foot tall, 1x1 mesh. And this one, it's in the upper left-hand corner. It's kind of where you could see that most prominently in the fence that goes behind the people in the silhouette.
So that's not glass at all then? I thought
it's
it was
not glass. No,
Oh, okay.
all these, right now we're representing them as mesh. There was a concern, glass or plexiglass with graffiti as being, so of course we're open to,
No, that makes sense, and it just, my old eyes, I couldn't tell. It looks
Well,
Difficult to see on the.
in the renderings, admittedly, the mesh at that distance and the materials we're using are.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Hold on a second.
I'm sorry.
Did you have another question on the first one?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Option one, the West Sacramento sign and wave seems to suggest the formation of the barn, as does the wind veil suggest the art piece on the river with the aluminum reflective. Was that done intentionally to kind of have a synergy?
I wish I
there?
could say
Just
so, but.
just say yes.
Those elements and things, both in the neighborhood of this area, but in the greater, we did a lot of precedent review, and maybe indirectly, I can't say that specifically, though, that was, I mean, I do see what you're saying, and I think we could even enhance that further in these. I'm not going to lie to you and say that was a direct, like, that's what we were trying to replicate.
Just say yes.
I know.
And going back to the landscaping, I see native seeds. Does that mean all the plantings would be native plants?
Not, they would be, we would work with parks. Most likely, they wouldn't all be native, but they would be adaptive. So they would be low water use, predominantly low water use, just to meet the state ordinance. That's going to be a necessity, and that's good practice. Natives, probably at the entry points would not give the aesthetic that, I typically won't give the aesthetic that most people are going to want to see at an entry point, because they don't they have a non-ornamental look to them. But we do predominantly do natives combined with adaptive to the region that allow for low water use plants. We certainly can go to an all-native palette, but that does require extra maintenance from a parks or a maintenance standpoint. So we can explore that if that is a desire.
I've never seen the kinetic wind veil piece before in any bridge. Can you just share a little bit about the idea where that came from?
Yeah, there's a few examples. The one that we have the photo of up in the corner, I think it's one of the baseball stadiums in the Midwest that is using it, and that's a parking garage in that image. So, in their attempt to screen that, so that you can get the scale, or you can see the people in there, the scale of that. One of the places where we first started looking at it is the Alhambra water trucks, if you've ever driven behind that, right? So, because it kind of says water to it, and we started looking into how that might be implemented and came across a couple of examples of how we might be able to implement that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that it for the first one? Think so?
Did you have a-
Windvale, any concerns long-term of upkeep on that?
We haven't implemented one before, so we will have to look at how it would be assembled. I think there is still a Caltrans kind of review that we have to make sure that they have things against things that are going to be distracting for drivers. So we'll look at that, but we would also want to make sure that it is something that's maintainable in the way that it's assembled. If maintenance means easily like repaired, or maintenance means repair-free, so yeah, so there'll be some research that would have to be done on that. Okay, I'll move on.
Oh, sorry, one more down
no,
here.
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm like over here hidden. About the plants, you mentioned native plants. Are poppies generally considered water-wise plants?
They're lower water use. They're California. They're the state,
They're
flower. Yeah, so they're
state flower.
yeah. So they're low water use. We don't plant them a lot ornamentally just because they're seasonal, like obviously. So, and when they're not flowering, they're not necessarily. That's kind of what my comment was about natives, is that they have their season that they're good, and then there's seasons where it's kind of brown and it's
Dead.
natural. But
Right. Yeah, the reason I brought it up is I know that there's a lot of poppies when you come into West Sac off of Jefferson. It's kind of a nice thing to see, usually in the spring, of course.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to kind of tie that into to the
What
trail.
we have done, and predominantly a lot of the trail area, just because I think the plan right now is not to irrigate the whole trail segment, will need to be native. So when I say, would we not be doing natives, I'm talking at the entry points where we might want to do something more green. But the native seed mixes, we work with some of the local seed companies about mixes that would work well in this area. And we have done them where the seed mix includes poppies. And I think that might be a very possible to do along that southern segment that's going to be trail with native seeds, that poppy could be integrated into that. We could look into that definitely. And yes, it has, when it pops, that's a really good,
Okay,
nice
thank
look,
you.
yeah.
I had just one more question about the lighting. You may have mentioned it, sorry. The lighting, is it solar? How is that working out?
I think at this point, we're exploring power to all whatever lighting is going to be a long way would be, I'm sorry, motion activated and then powered. Definitely the overcrossing would be, and then the lighting along the trail looks like it would be as well.
All right.
You sure?
Yeah, no. Option 2.
All right, option 2. So option 2, we're calling the port, and this was inspired by the equipment and architecture at the port, and a callback to that. On this, it's kind of the profile of the loading equipment that was there is what we're seeing in elevation. This one in the elevation view, we're kind of showing a daytime, nighttime for the potential of what this could look like at night. We're going to get a little more into the overcrossing lighting later, but this kind of backlighting of this wire mesh is something that we think could be applied to any of these concepts to give kind of the glow effect in combination with safety lighting along the trail itself or the overcrossing itself. From the guardrail standpoint on this particular scheme, you could see in the rendering in the upper left-hand corner and then in a photograph in the lower right-hand corner, this one kind of explores opening up that overcrossing instead of having the straight vertical fences, pushing that out a little bit to give a little more feel of a more open crossing. The overall width of the deck is 14 feet. So by pushing that out, you at least get the feel that you're not as enclosed as much. And we could do that with this scheme. That's kind of the story behind this one. I don't know if there's any specific questions to.
Start down here this time.
Sorry. Do all the bridges have some sort of day-night kind of thing? Like, is it just this one?
No, this is the only one we did it in the rendering, but all of them have the potential to have the lighting effect. What we will be exploring is, there's a balance between where the lighting goes and the effect that it will cast. We're conscious of the night sky ordinances, so we're not uplighting. We also need to be aware of Caltrans like blinding people as they drive, but there are means of, and fixtures that we could do that would give this wash across the rails. That's similar to this, but we think they could be applied to any of the concepts that you're going to see tonight.
Yes, I was going to ask, the three options that have signage, is that placed on both the east and the west sides of the bridges? The West Sacramento signage?
It could be, yes. We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, I think the thought would be yes, that we would put it on both sides. Yes?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I figured you'd just go.
The signs, the signage itself, is that illuminated at all, or could it be
It,
within Caltrans guidelines?
that would be the only caveat. So there's potential for it. This rendering suggests that it is backlit. It could also be in a way that it can catch the light that's shining down on the rest of the fencing. So I think Caltrans, backlighting it might be more of an issue with Caltrans. So that is something that we'd have to investigate, because it would be glowing elements, and that may be a potential distraction. Would there be desire to backlight it if it is possible? Is that?
Well, I would like it.
That's what we're here to
But
hear.
the rendering shows it, I think we like what the rendering shows.
Okay, all right.
Any more questions down on this end?
So this one shows pretty, well, in the little fence, the middle image on the top, it shows more of like a rail. I'm wondering if this is the only one that has more of a rail guard on it, or if all of them have rail guards?
They would all have some kind of guardrail element. Yeah.
Not a question as much as an observation. I'll side with your comments. I do like the backlighting on West Sacramento. I just would have a little concern that, as it's seen in this rendering, it gets hard to read. I wouldn't want to lose that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for option 2? All right, option 3.
Option 3. So option 3, we're calling the basket, and 3 and 4 is, were inspired or referenced on the Patwin Native American history of the West Sacramento. And specifically to the boat and the basket weaving, and that we're seeing was part of the culture of that time and those people. So this is the basket. The concept here, what you're seeing in elevation is it's a rounded enclosure that is fully enclosed at the ends in the middle, and then has an open cutout areas in the areas that look like they dip down in the middle. And again, we were talking about trying to not create a unique gateway element for those on the highway coming in, but also play with the experience of going across the crossing itself. And I think the rendering starts to depict is the shadow patterns and just the architecture itself would create a pretty cool experience as you're going through. And again, these horizontal elements that we have going through would have the mesh in there. There would be the rails and the mesh, so as a protection, and then the lighting could be incorporated into those horizontals so that it would kind of wash over that mesh that we had in there. So you could get that same night effect that we showed in the previous option. Yes.
The example you have there in the lower right-hand side, the white bridge, what city or where is that from?
You know what? I think I would have to, I might have to get back to you.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
It's cool. I was just
really
wondering
cool.
if I could look up a picture and see like more of it.
I definitely could get you. We have the source of it, and I
Thank you.
apologize, I just didn't have it.
I know we're looking at aesthetics, but I'm curious, is there significant cost issues between the different options?
There are cost differences between all the options, whether those are issues. Would you call them issues? There are differences.
Commissioner, that's a good question. So in terms of the cost, I mean, if you wanted a range of what the each option, it looks like we're talking in the order of option 1 and 2 to being about $250,000 to $350,000 more than what would be a standard Caltrans pedestrian overcrossing. Option 3, what you're looking at here is probably 400 to 500,000. And then the upcoming options end up being over $1 million, 800 to over $1 million of increased costs.
Is the federal funding that we have for this flexible enough that it captures the increase in costs?
That's a good question. Yes and no. Currently, we have a slight contingency that could absorb some of this, but not entirely. So as the commission provides recommendations to the project team, when we go to council, we'll be presenting not only the recommendations, but the impacts associated with that to identify the available funds that could cover it and/or the shortfalls where should the council continue forward with one of the recommendations that we don't have sufficient funding for. So.
Okay, and the reason I ask, and for some of you that haven't maybe been here for some of the building of some of our other 3 bridges in the Southport area that were built, there's been kind of a dichotomy of feedback on those bridges. Bridges are needed. We wanted them built, but all 3 of the bridges that cross the deep water channel have been criticized as being extremely plain. So that's some of the feedback that I've gotten. So that's why I'm curious what the cost differentials were here, how we capture those, because I think ultimately, I think it would be great to have something we're very proud of, but we're fiscally responsible with, but also taking those past critiques of the plainness of some of the other bridges into heart as we try and represent the community.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm a literal driver, and I've been on highways before that go north-south, but they're called 35 east or 35 west. And option 3, the way West Sacramento is stacked, it doesn't really read, it could read westbound from either side, where option 1 and 2, you can read a little bit more than it's replacement.
I got you, yeah.
But is that a concern, would it be a concern to Caltrans that west is a directional kind of thing?
I don't know that Caltrans would necessarily have Caltrans has its own specific language of how their directions and signage is. I can see where your comment is coming from, and that's definitely something we could explore a little further.
Gail just said West Sacramento City or City of.
Yep.
That just made me think of something else too on the, speaking of Caltrans and things, are they going to hang a bunch of other stuff on this thing?
Is there going to be signage on? No.
Not yet.
Because the lowest part of that is, nothing can go below that, correct? Right.
I wasn't suggesting they hang anything on there, just.
No, I know, that's a good question, and I didn't,
I mean, you spend a
assumed
bunch of
not,
money
but
on
I
aesthetic
probably-
treatments, and then they stick a bunch of green signs on it.
Yeah.
Well, in our discussions with Caltrans, there is one sign that has to be relocated as part of the project, but it's not not going to be affixed to the bridge. So as, in our coordination with Caltrans, there isn't anything that is proposed to be hung onto the bridge from Caltrans standpoint. So.
Thanks. All right, any other questions on Sasha?
Is there any reason behind this color red?
No, just with the recommendation is to do something, and maybe, I don't even know that rendering on the screen pops as much, but something with color. And honestly, we were trying to stay a little neutral, maybe to get some feedback. I don't know that we would suggest trying to compete gold, right? But a bright color. I think the other one we did blue. These last ones we did red, just to suggest a color that would pop.
Go ahead.
So there's a screening that runs inside of that, so those horizontal bars are not accessible.
Correct.
Okay.
The screening would go inside.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, so then, for option 4, we have two variations on it. We call them both the weave, and they're a spin-off of the basket, the Patwin basket or boat, with their construction. And they both build off of a helix form. In the 4A, it's a deconstructed basket, so what we have is the helix form, a little more simplified than you'll see in the 4B, with these horizontal elements that, again, at the pedestrian and bicyclist level, will play on the shadows that are cast, and the sense of varying sense of enclosure as you're going through and under the tunnel. From an elevation, it gives you the kind of the in-process construction of the basket weave. That's what we were aiming for. In this one, there's a slight variation I think it might be a little more evident in this one of the how that guardrail would be integrated and bowed out to give you that extra room as you're going across the overcrossing.
Any questions for this one? Option 5.
All right, option 5. Option 5 is just a different variation on the weave, and this is just a interlaced double helix or helix form. And here, we kind of went crazy with with creating that. It's a little less literal as far as the basket weave, but I think from both experience of approaching it and going through it, would just kind of create a very interesting experience going through. What's that?
Just cool.
It's just cool. We don't usually just go for cool, and it was inspired by the same thing as 4A, so we wanted to bring it just as a discussion piece to talk about. Other than that, I think this one and I think the previous one really don't lend themselves so much to putting the letters on them. That would be a little difficult to implement that. So that is, but in this sense, I think these last two kind of speak for themselves as far as their entry pieces. Oh, have you seen West Sacramento's overcrossing? Right. At some point, it won't need the city name on it. It was part of the thought, but we may be off base with that.
All right, any questions on Weave B? Any questions in general, or to Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Christy.
So 4A and 4B could conceivably run, budget-wise, up to $1 million more than our current
I think those
grants
are the numbers
cover.
that-
Is that correct?
That is correct. I think right now our preliminary estimates would run at between $800 to $1.5 million more.
Thank you.
4.5?
1.5, yeah.
Elizabeth.
This is more just, sorry, is this on?
No, just.
Okay, this is just more of a comment of, when I go over the Bay Bridge now, you know, I see the stuff that goes over and just how the structure was rebuilt, and it's always an experience for me. And I can imagine myself walking through a bridge and having it be an experience. But I'm really torn between the cost difference of how much it's going to be if we do this, and whether or not we want to use this bridge to provide an experience for people and have it be some sort of art form that people can, you know, resonate with West Sacramento, or do we try to keep it a little more basic and simple the way that we see it in Bridge 1 and 2 to be more cost effective? Not sure, you know, not necessarily saying this is a question, but just more of a comment. And and thinking about what do we want this bridge to be? Just a bridge that is being built, or do we want to make it an experience for folks?
Excellent point, yeah.
So I'm a huge art, public place, signage, placemaking advocate, but I'm sort of thinking the same thing, is that 3, 4, and 5 are, to me, a bit much. If that's the feedback, is that it's, you look at bridges that have been built in the last 20 years, like there's a bridge at Cameron and Elk Grove or Galt. Some of those, they're really classy. And it's like a timeless design that's going to, you try and please everyone with that bridge, if that makes sense. I think 1 and 2 hit those, and 3, 4, and 5 provide opportunities for interpretation of whether they like it or not. That's my opinion. I like them. I don't think it's going to be right for this bridge, but that's my opinion, and certainly everyone else is going to be able to have a chance to vote on that and as we narrow it down. Does anybody else have any comments?
I do. I want to agree with what Elizabeth said about going over the Bay Bridge and how that's an experience, because if you've ever walked across the Turtle Bay Bridge in Reading, love you, Reading, but they don't have a ton to offer, but that is an amazing experience. And when you drive by it, you want to be on it. And I feel like driving underneath some of these would make a person pull off and come and walk across and visit. That's kind of moving to me, although I like the words too.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with Christy on that. Yeah.
I had a question about, there was a mention about a sign that was being moved. Just thinking about that area, there's the sign that marks the mileage marker to Ocean City, Maryland, that's happening. Would that potentially be the sign that's
That's way
displaced?
further west than that.
Would that, I think that'd be around that same location.
The sign that's in question, or it has to be relocated, is actually the Harbor Boulevard off-ramp exit. So it actually just needs to be moved to be visible for those who are traveling westbound.
Yeah, the westbound harbor one.
We'll still make it to Ocean City.
Each person pull in, which is the.
What's our procedure for I see there's like a sign over there thing. Just so we're making comments and asking, and the question that Mr. McMichael asked is, what's our next step from here? That was your question, right? Kind of like, what?
Yeah. Commissioners, we're actually not done yet, so
Okay.
we do have
Sorry, just trying to move it along.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the enthusiasm, because we do, I mean, maybe just as a reminder, when we are done, I think we have about maybe 3 or 4 more slides. Yeah. And it's really just to kind of highlight the landings, especially at the Westmore Oaks Elementary, who is a critical stakeholder as part of this project that we've been coordinating for, actually since the project started. But just back to your question, though, our request is to poll each and every one of you to get down from 5 to 2 and tally up the top 2 preferred alternatives, and then from there, have a subsequent discussion, if needed, to get down to the preferred one of those top 2. So with that, I would turn it back to Dan. And
Yep, please complete. Sorry.
I'll go quickly on these.
No, do your thing. That's all right.
We touched upon this, most of these are already. The bridge amenities, all 5 options that you looked at, fencing and railing from a safety standpoint, but also as a enforcement of the concept or the aesthetics are opportunities that all of them have, as is the lighting that we talked about on the bridge. And then screening from a privacy standpoint, so on the north landing end, we're adjacent to some residences and I think apartment buildings that are adjacent to it. So there'd be some particular railing, screening treatment so that they did not feel, with the rising of the walkway going next to them, it would protect the privacy of those who in the neighboring properties next to them. And that would be incorporated no matter which option is selected. On the Westmore Oaks Elementary School side, I was talking about nodes along the way. So we had Jolie Lopes Park. This is the next big node that you would hit, and a destination, and something that we all felt was worth noting and acknowledging, and there's an opportunity place there. So what you see here, coming from the upper left-hand corner, that's where you would come across the overcrossing down south. Excuse me. And then the majority of this ramp is to bring you down. It's the length that's needed to bring you down to grade again. And about midway through that lower segment, you see a vertical line. That's where the ramp comes to grade, right before this bigger open plaza area with the star in it. So that's an arrival plaza area opportunity that we've shown, kind of based on the water nautical theme, how we might be able to implement that. But again, if one of the other concepts are chosen for the overcrossing, we would want to tie these pavement treatments in with those more closely. We've suggested some of the landscape treatment in the middle of the landing area here. And then the walkway, after it goes to the plaza, runs back to Clarendon. That's headed off to the right-hand side of the page. At the bridge landing, I talked about the paving enhancements and how, again, that could be applied. Acknowledging that we're at the school, there's some opportunity to, put the school banners on the light poles as you're going down the walkway, and kind of speak to that. Part of the structure that's holding up the landing as it comes down are referred to as MSC walls, kind of prefabricated retaining walls, but there is some treatment to those to have an aesthetic application to those. You've probably seen them. A lot of times they'll do them with a stone look to them, or ridges or that, but there is some customization that can happen with that, and that may be a potential. The Dragons have their code of honor, and actually it's a code that I think all of us could live by, so maybe that's something that could be applied. We suggest engraving in the side of this MSC wall, so think of it as a horizontal plane as you're walking by the approach to the overcrossing as it's getting larger, and defend, that's written there. But their code of honor, it's an opportunity. It could also be, those words could be engraved in that plaza if we wanted to emphasize the dragon, the school theme a little more there.
The landing that goes into Westmore Oaks with the security gates, that landing would put you, if you went through those security gates, you would be in the north portion of Westmore Oaks parking lot?
That is correct. That is correct. So the entire landing falls on the north end of the parking lot for Westmore Oaks Elementary. So in coordination with the Westmore Oaks principal and the school district themselves, the intent of our connection point at the landing, where in this case the compass is shown, that's going to be the security gate that's only open two periods during the day. It's only open during the arrival in the morning, and then there would be a manned security or a school attendant that would be at the gate, and then close it once school starts. And then when school lets out, it'll be opened again, and then it'll be closed once that period of departure is. But the physical connection to the trail itself is through the walkway that connects to Clarendon. So if someone that's not going in the morning is riding their bike or walking or jogging, they're not allowed to go to the school. They would actually walk all the way to Clarendon.
But that puts the children, when the gate is open, walking through the parking lot.
Well, what's kind of not shown right now, it's right off the side of the bottom left-hand corner where that security gate, there's actually a walkway on the south side. So what we're actually doing is providing a crosswalk there to have the kids cross and get on the sidewalk.
That's a maintenance driveway on the left of that crosswalk.
Yeah.
And
it's not accessible. The vehicle.
I'm sorry, but you have to come to the microphone because it's recorded and people can't hear you if you're not on a mic. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm Brian Hansen with Drake Hagelin. What's shown there, though, left of the crosswalk is actually the maintenance drive or the fire lane through the back of the school, and you can see the arrow which directs traffic. The traffic actually comes in from Clarendon and turns before it hits the crosswalk. And in discussion with the principal, their bike racks and things like that are located on that back side, and this provides more direct access from them without crossing any sort of vehicle crossing. So.
The crosswalk that was mentioned, is that's going to be provided by, already through the bridge?
Yes, that'll be, all the components that are identified here are part of the project. So we would be building, installing the security gate, the crosswalk, and the ramp associated to it.
And does the school have the capacity for an additional crosswalk guard, or will that have to?
That's a good question. In speaking with, in our various meetings with them, they didn't indicate whether they would require a new full-time employee to man that. I mean, typically that is an assignment that is given to teachers already during the pickup and departure. And the only reason I know that is my wife is a teacher, so I know she does it on occasion. So, but they haven't expressed the need to man it with an additional FTE, but it's something we could certainly follow up with them.
Please continue. Oh, sorry, one more question for you.
I'm interested in knowing what would be underneath the ramp as it is going up toward the pedestrian overcrossing. Is that going to be open space? Is that filled?
I need to know exactly where you're talking about. I mean, as Dan mentioned, the entry part or the initial part of the ramp is going to be supported through what's called the MSE walls, which is precast walls.
Right.
So kind of as you go around the bend, there isn't any access to be underneath the ramp at that point. But as you get to a certain point, then yes, it's going to be an elevated portion that you can see the underside of the pedestrian crossing, which isn't accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
Can I add?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. Just one more thing to touch on there. This U shape, originally we had two walls essentially constraining the fill on either side of the trail, but there was a concern that then somebody could hide in behind those walls. So what we've done is the interior of that U section is actually filled all the way up to the trail level. And at the start of the bridge, you can kind of see a curved retaining wall. So that whole section from the end of the bridge will be sloped towards the school. Okay. We've done some visual renderings from the actual school site to make sure that you could actually see the entire trail section, including that landscaping. That was a concern of the principal, that you don't have hiding spots for people. So with this infill, you're able to see the entire trail section and that landscape piece.
Did you bring those slides with you?
No, I don't have them with me, sorry.
Is the screening fence that you have on the north, or towards the top, also what we can expect on the bottom by the security gate?
On the north side, no. Typically, that's going to be well, we have two entities, or two stakeholders here. So on the north side, we are working with Caltrans on what kind of a fencing material they're going to want. Typically, you would have your coated chain link fence. With the school district, we're actually looking at possibly some wrought iron fencing along the trail, along the parking lot. But that's something that we're kind of looking at what options we have, and they would prefer as we separate the ramp and the parking lot.
Please continue.
I think with that, if there's no other questions on the landing, then we're to Edgar's your right to vote.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm a little geographically challenged here. So on the Northern Trail segment where it comes out by Joey Lopes Park, I know there's a big community garden over there. Is it going anywhere near that? I mean, will that be affected at all?
That's a very good question. So let me see if I don't think our slides actually covered that area, but let me see. So in here, you can kind of see the community garden.
Right.
So to answer your question, yes, the ramp does impact the existing community garden, but we're working with Parks and the associated grant that actually built the garden to re-establish the same area of garden that exists now. It'll just be relocated in the same general location, but it'll be reconfigured to be reestablished.
Cool.
All right, so are we at the point of logistically you asking us to do something?
Yes. No, I appreciate everyone's time again. This is a great project for not only the project team, but I think for the community as a whole. But in that, we do need some guidance. So what we've asked, just to recap, what we asked is to provide some sort of recommendation as an individual and from each commissions to narrow down your top two, in a sense, and then we could have a further discussion, and then to come down to a recommended alternative that we take back to council. Just from left to right, I would offer that maybe Commissioner Lozano, if you want to start with your top two, and you could preface that with any general comments and/or questions, and we'll tally up the votes at the end and continue the discussion.
So listening to everything so far, my favorite two right now would be the river and the port, and just because I feel like those tie into the whole culture and the idea of West Sacramento the most. I like the whole idea of the industrial, the Rice Corporation and all those things over there that coming into the port section of it. And I think the river section, it kind of ties into like art that we're doing here now. It also ties into the barn, like you said earlier. So I would say either one of those. I would love to see those.
I would also concur. I would say that I would also rank river and port as my top two.
I would rank river and basket as my top two. Thank you.
I think they're all wonderful.
Is your microphone
Well, then that tells us that we did a good job, or
They're all-
Dan did a good job.
Clearly, there was a lot of work involved here. I would say river and basket.
For me, option 1 and option 3.
Option 1 is river? Yes.
River and
Basket.
Basket, yep.
As much as I want to agree with the basket and the weave, I'm going to say river and port.
Is that fiscal responsibility?
Now, irregardless of fiscal responsibility, I think that, just what I said earlier, just trying to think of this as 50 years down the road, what it's going to look like.
It'll be covered in ivy.
No, I'll stick with river and port, but thanks for the concern.
I'm going to go with port and basket. I have a little bit of a concern with what was brought up earlier in the maintenance of the wind wheel and kind of what that would look like. So I chose port, and then with basket, I think that brings just a little bit more of an experience as you walk through the trail.
I'll hold my comments. I'm going to side with river, followed by basket.
River and
Basket.
And I will go with river and weave B. I think that one just needs to get a vote. A city with, limited placemaking opportunities like us, I think that would be amazing.
I'm going to go with river, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the Memorial Park discussion. If we're going to do something like this, if it's going to be our entryway, let's put something out there that's a little maybe beyond our reach at the moment, but at least something to look at and to strive for. And I think if it is an entryway to our city, having something that's really neat and unique is is Weave B. And I'm also thinking of the comments we've gotten about some of the other bridges leading into Southport about them being so plain. And maybe we can make up for some of that with a neat one over the freeway.
Hi, so my first vote is for Basket and Weave A or B. That's why I guess B, because no one else would have voted for A. And my basis for my decision is that I think that honoring our Indigenous residents here in a major way as an entry point to the city is huge. I don't think there's any major artwork that I can think of. Sorry, my son's like choosing now to be really loud. I don't think that anything exists, to my knowledge. Even on the river, there's like some like pictures of weaves and baskets and stuff. But like I think Christy said earlier about the pedestrian bridge in Reading. I actually went out of my way to go visit that bridge because I learned about the history and the architect that designed it, and it was Spanish, and it was just so interesting. So I drove 3 hours just to go see that bridge. It's an amazing experience, and I went twice. I took my husband the next time I went. So, I think that if there is anything projection as far as like, not this being a tourist draw, but as an experience, will this kind of enliven the area? Will it make people stop coming in from the causeway? I don't know, but I definitely think that both those things should be considered, that, we should be honoring people that lived here first. So, thank you.
Well, it's not a winner. It's not a winner. We have, can you let us know where we're at on the?
Well, based off the tally, so the preferred or priority one would be the river with 9 votes, and then the basket with 5. So that would be technically our shortlisting would be the top 2 or the final 2. Then we're hoping that we could come with one recommendation from those 2. Now, I would at least offer in my staff report to the city council some of the comments that were expressed for some of the other alternatives. And while we are hoping to only take one, or we are only taking one preferred alternative to council, they will have information on all the alternatives that were presented. So
So I know our role here is to provide the public input that you're looking for, but is there any window of opportunity that this can go up on the city website and put it out there for a wider group of folks to take a look at and click a button for, even if it's a day or two? Just curious.
It's hard to, that's a good opportunity to get feedback from the city. And certainly the residents. I think that'd be something that I have to kind of confer with upper management.
It's just consistent with what you've done in the past on the Sycamore Trail. I mean, there was a large citizen input period for the first couple phases, and it just feels like this is kind of a big linchpin piece of it, and not having any opportunity for any type of, at least just even broader public taking a look at it. Just as a committee of one, I would think just some small period of time up on the website where we can at least send it out to folks and say, hey, at least take a look at this, would be wise.
Okay.
I think a lot of that comment period also could be handled by, once a aesthetic treatment has gotten far enough along where you're ready to present it to council, that's a good point to put it out there and say, this is the aesthetic treatment being considered by council, as an alternative to putting it out there and letting people vote on it. I think that's sort of the point of these commissions, is to convey what the public wants to do. And certainly having this at this commission and at TMI, or Transportation and Infrastructure Mobility, TIM, provides ample opportunity, not ample, I'm not gonna say ample, provides opportunity for the public to comment and have their, express their opinions on what we're doing. I think, like I said, our job is to do that. If there's opportunity for you guys to put it up there, that's great, considering our job is to provide you with what we think we need to do, being the next step. Let us know how we need to move forward with selecting one, or how is that going to work? But we'll take more comments here.
At this point, I would move that we forward our recommendations as a combined commission for approval to the city council.
Do we need to make a final recommendation first?
Yeah, we're not.
Yes,
there
our
yet.
request is that we have one preferred recommendation. And we could revote. Our intent was that we revote for the river or basket, and then it'll be a joint recommendation from the commissions.
All right, put everybody on the spot. So I would just table that motion. Yeah, we're going to, is it okay to table that motion? Perfect.
So maybe we'll.
Go from the other-
Commissioner
go from the
Ahmad,
other
maybe
side.
We could start from the right-hand side.
With two.
So with the two preferred, or at least the top ranked,
Just cast my vote for which one?
which one of the river or the basket?
Basket.
River. River.
River.
Basket.
River.
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 Basket.
Basket.
River.
Why don't you make that motion again?
We'll call for a question on it.
Oh, yeah, do we have any more concerns, comments, questions on the comments we made?
My only comment is that I've been on a lot of the selection committees for different things. And when, this is beautiful, but when the reality hits, things get pared down, and I would really hate to lose what's been proposed for the river. I'd hate to lose the organic movement. I'd hate to lose the lighting, or, and it is my hope that we can stay close to this.
I would restate my motion to, that the Joint Commission recommend the final vote as forwarded on for decision.
Do we have a second for that motion? So that was motion by Commissioner McMichael and seconded by Brannaman. All in favor of moving the motion forward, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none. That motion to approve the vote as conducted for the river recommendation and along with your notes, I think we're all good with that.
Thank you so much.
All right. So item 2 on the regular agenda is done. We now have item 3, which is the adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So moved to
Second.
second. So Commissioner Clower, seconded by Commissioner Horowitz to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.